excited to have you here. Welcome to today's show. As you can hear, today's show is going to be in English because our guest, Nick Bloy, is from England. He's also half French. So I'm super excited to welcome Nick Bloy to the show. He's the founder of Wellbeing Republic and he is living his dream life. And his mission is taking the discussion from ill-being to well-being. Nick is a former lawyer and HR business partner with a master's in chemistry. In his capacity as coach, keynote speaker, facilitator and strategist, he works with organizations in the UK and internationally and across multiple different industry sectors to help individuals and organizations to unleash their true potential to thrive. He is the author of the book Exponential, Unleash Your True Potential, and has spoken at various national and international conferences about the role that well-being plays in driving peak performance. He currently sits on the research committee for a groundbreaking piece of research looking at how the culture in the legal profession affects people's mental health. Outside of work, Nick is a seasoned ultra-endurance athlete, having cycled solo across Europe and completed several multi-day ultra-endurance events, including a 500-kilometer run from Scotland to Wales in just 6 days. He is also the loving husband to his wife, Nicole. To the show, Nick. Fabulous to have you here. So excited for this interview with you. You're normally based out of London, right? You're also half French, but now you're in Sweden. So how are you finding that?
Pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to tell you, given that you live here, but I mean, Sweden's a beautiful country, and the ability to just plop into the ocean when we want is really fantastic.
Yeah, because you are based out in the archipelago at the moment, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and Sweden is known for its archipelago. It's just absolutely stunning.
Yeah, we've got the water a couple of hundred meters away from the house.
Oh wow, yeah, it
Beautiful.
is amazing. So, I understand, Nick, that you have made the shift, going from doing what you were expected to actually following your heart. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've known each other for a few years now, and it has been quite a transition, I guess, from being caught up in, I guess, what most people would call the corporate treadmill, into doing something tangibly different, which I wouldn't have even considered 5 years ago. But it's been a shift that has been so overwhelmingly positive. I mean, yes, there's been some ups and downs. It's been challenging at times, of course. But do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. I think the fear that I had leading up to it was absolutely not warranted, essentially. And, you know, had I had the bravery to do that earlier, I probably would have reaped many more benefits still.
Yeah, so could you tell us a little bit about those fears?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, like most people, well, maybe not most people, but certainly the ones that I know and the ones that I work with, you know, we get caught up in this ideal of what society expects us to do, right? So we get the job, and you know, for me that was initially working in law, and then I went on to work in HR. But for me it was always about getting that step higher, get the next grade, the next pay rise, but it was never fulfilling. And I knew that it wasn't fulfilling. It wasn't doing what I set out to do initially in my life, but I was scared to do anything else. It's almost like if I stopped and paused to even dare to think differently, that my whole world would come collapsing around me. So in many ways, I just wanted to keep going and keep pushing, hoping that at some point I'd get the success, the fulfillment that I was so desperately craving. But the thing is, had I stayed on that treadmill, I'd still be doing that today and I wouldn't be a happy person.
So what prompted you to make the shift?
Well,
do you know when it happened?
I know exactly when it happened. I mean, it's definitely thanks to my wife. Like, if I back then I didn't have the tools and the skills that I have now, and it took a humongous amount of courage and bravery to step out into something that was completely unknown to me. It was outside of the confines of what society deems acceptable in terms of, you know, going onto the corporate ladder, working within an organization which is supposed to be safe and everything else. To having her just go, you know what, this is, you know, I know you want to do this, just, I will support you, just go for it. And giving me that confidence that if I do it, I won't regret it.
Yeah. And have you?
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been amazing. And as I said, I don't have any regrets. I think it's been challenging, especially for the first couple of years. You're trying to build a brand, you're trying to build, you know, also your knowledge and expertise and everything else. And that's challenging.
Yeah.
but it's also so rewarding because you get to make an impact and see the impact that you're having pretty much straight away.
Yeah.
Whereas in the corporate machine, it's so hard sometimes to really notice how you're having a positive effect.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Wellbeing Republic.
So yeah, a couple of things. For me, as I said, I was working in law and then in HR. I actually experienced my own mental ill health probably about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's pretty close to burnout. Didn't quite get there, thankfully, but started to get very cynical about work, pretty exhausted, a lot of anxiety. So it felt like someone was crushing my chest. Not a really pleasant experience to go through, but it kind of awakened my mind that something wasn't quite right. And for me, I thought it was something physical. So I went to the doctor and everything. It was just like, they were just testing me for all these physical ailments, which they never found because, of course, it was a mental ill health condition, not a physical condition. And so eventually got the diagnosis that it was mental health related, or ill health related more specifically, because I wasn't feeling particularly good. And interesting enough, despite that experience, I don't think that was consciously the reason why I set it up. Through that transition, I was working in HR, getting more involved in the wellbeing side. I was an HR business partner at the time. But the bit of my role that fulfilled me the most was the bit where I was helping people and creating programs that was helping people to thrive. And that was part of the thing that really helped me to get through that period of burnout and out the other side in a really positive way. I stopped worrying about stuff. I started to become far more engaged in what I was doing. Because I could see the tangible impact that it was having on people's lives. And that was, for me, the kind of the light bulb moment to say, I want to do more of this. This feels really good. This feels back to kind of what I was really thinking about when I was 11 or 12 years old. I wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to help people in a way. And I thought I could do that through when I studied chemistry at university. I thought I could do that in law. I thought I could do that in HR. But it never really happened that way. And so when I started to see the results of what I guess I'd been longing for so long, in a completely random way, because it kind of happened, and I made it happen for sure. But it also feels a little bit like serendipity, if you will. And, putting those programs in place and seeing the tangible impact it was having on people, I wanted to take that and make it bigger and make it better. And actually just, from there it just grew.
Going from that place of stress and close to burnout, what were the steps that you took that really helped you get through that and get back on track, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, the first thing I started doing when I realised that is exercise, because I knew that exercise was positively correlated with feeling better. The ironic thing with that is that initially when I started exercising again, or even going out for walks, the symptoms would actually start to come back quite a lot. And it's almost like my brain started to associate those things with the tightness in my chest. Because when I'd been commuting, walking or running for the train, I was highly stressed. And my brain had literally in its infinite wisdom thought, I know, that must mean that anytime I do this particular activity, this is how you should feel. And so to overcome that afterwards... So
exercise actually started to trigger the stress response?
Absolutely. Yeah. Which is normally the opposite of what happens, right? People go out and exercise and it reduces anxiety, it reduces all this stuff. But for me, it was actually triggering it again because it had caused that association over 18 months of pretty intense stress. And so to overcome that was, when I didn't have any of these tools at that point, was probably more a stroke of luck than anything else, or maybe an innateness of just knowing, wait a second, if I know that this isn't real, if I know that my brain is trying to trick me, if I can believe fundamentally that I'm okay and breathe through it, it turns out, of course, breath is the window to our nervous system and that helps things calm down fundamentally. And that's what I did. I was like, just take some deep breaths, you're okay, you're going to be okay. I did this for 3 months. And then one day I was like, oh, I don't notice it anymore.
Wow. So two things actually would I hear, that you also told yourself, I'm going to be okay. So you changed also your thinking pattern probably from like, I'm stressed, I'm noticing this physiology in my body, but also then consciously taking deep breaths and helping yourself.
So shifting focus, absolutely. Shifting focus onto something more positive that isn't then generating the anxious thoughts and feelings. And then also focusing on the breath, which we know is tied into the vagus nerve, which feeds back into the brain and calms the system down as well.
And so for 3 months, after 3 months, you noticed that it basically was gone.
Eventually, as I said, it just dissipated without. And I think it's more of a oh, I've stopped noticing.
Exactly. So you can't say that this was when it happened, but it has happened over time, and then you realize it's gone.
Exactly.
Kind of. So Nick, for the first 35 years of your life, going through the motions and doing what was expected of you, and what was driving you during that period?
And it's such an interesting question, because I think so many of us are being driven by this invisible force, which we don't recognize, and we do it, and we don't question it because we don't know any other way. And it was only until I'd broken out of that cycle that I could see what was driving me, and it was fear.
Yeah.
The whole time. It was fear of not being enough. It was fear of, not having my place in the world and everything else. I wanted to be significant. I wanted all of these things, but that fear was born out of, childhood trauma and everything else. And we're not going to go into the details here, but I think I had this desperate need to know that I was worthy and that I was enough. And so I kept on trying to push for more accolade, for more recognition, for more status, for more money, expecting that, eventually, at some point, surely, it would be enough. And I would therefore feel enough.
Yeah.
But as any psychologist will tell you, the void that we're trying to fill isn't something that can be filled with any of those extrinsic kind of rewards that we seek so desperately as human beings to try and fulfill it. And it's only when I then started to do much more of the well-being stuff and actually transition into what I now do with Wellbeing Republic, coaching people, just literally helping people, you realize, and also just having that aha moment, I am enough.
Yeah.
And that was really, really driven by, the love that my wife gave to me. I think I remember for the first, 30 odd years of my life, I couldn't say the word I love you to my mum or to my dad. For me, the word love was, you only say that in a very, very specific, special occasion, because it will be used against you. It's a finite resource that, you have to be very, very careful with.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I protected it. But of course, that stopped me from really truly connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And also it stopped me from connecting with myself.
Yeah.
And so, she's Swedish, of course.
Yeah.
As you well know. So
I do.
Yeah. And she just showered me with the stuff, and I to start with,
you're stop.
I'm just like, what do I do with this? I'm like, this feels really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What you're saying to me can't be real, because you're using it as if it's just, there's so much of it to get around.
From the tap, it's gonna
you
never
need to be careful
out.
with this stuff, right?
Exactly.
It's just like, whoa. And then I kind of just slowly but surely, my heart just started to prise itself open, and I just allowed it to come in, and just like, wow, okay, so you can actually say, I love you, lots.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And it actually, it's
every day, multiple times a day, maybe even.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
No, well, that's crazy.
Oh.
But it's a renewable resource. And actually, the more we talk about it, the more we give, the more we get back.
Yeah. And the more, I guess, we are in that place of feeling love and allowing us to be there, it opens up a whole new world to us, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is essentially the void that we're all trying to fill.
Yeah.
All we want is to know that we're loved and that we belong.
Yeah. So would you say that now that you're living your dream life?
It's a great question, right? And this is what I know you love to help people with. If I look back on my life and think, where did I want it to go? I know at a very young age, and we talked about this off camera and stuff, that I wanted to be able to do good, or I wanted to earn enough money so that I could give back and do good. And I'm now getting to do both.
Yeah.
So I guess from that perspective, absolutely. But I guess the thing that I even wasn't cognizant of 10, 20, 30 years ago is the fact that I had such a desperate need to just want to belong and feel loved.
Yeah.
Which I now have. And actually I now have much better relationships with my parents, with my sibling, and my friends as well. We just talk much more openly than we used to. And for me, that is probably the absolute essence of living your dream life.
Yeah, exactly.
So to answer your question, absolutely.
Yeah. And would you also say that kind of following your own passion and what you're passionate about has helped bring that to life as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always talk about passion and purpose. I think those two things are fundamental to us as human beings to live a truly fulfilled life.
Yeah.
And, when I didn't used to wake up looking forward to the day ahead. For me, it was, I'm getting out of bed, I've got to go to work.
Yeah.
Now I'm bouncing out of bed at maybe 5:30, sometimes 6, whatever, but I'm just like, I can't wait to get started. I would not have had that way of thinking 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have just been, I'm exhausted, I don't feel good, I just want to go back to bed.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's just such a different way of living and feeling.
Yeah. I know that you're really into the why. Can you tell us more about that?
You know, thinking about the question about purpose, for me, it's, you know, what I do now really goes to my core. It's about making this difference. It's about helping people to thrive.
Yeah.
It's about giving them the tools that, I mean, some of it's intrinsic, but I think they've just forgotten how.
Yeah.
They've been so kind of caught up and boxed in by all these ways of thinking and being that are almost prescribed to them by society, that it stops them from living the life that they were truly meant to live.
Yeah. And then if you go back also to the passion piece, what's that for you?
For me, it's about just tapping into all of my strengths, right? So before, when I was either in HR or in law, I'd see snippets of bits where I'd get to use, maybe on occasion, like my creativity or, you know, my research. I love delving into research and just kind of getting to the, like a little bit like a dog with a bone, right?
Yeah.
And I'd get that sometimes, but it'd be quite rare. Whereas now what I'm getting to do is I'm getting to put all of these skills that I love to do. So if I'm, you know, creating a presentation to go and kind of deliver a keynote speech, I'm creating these beautiful animated kind of presentations that bring the audience in and to help me tell the story that I want to tell them to bring them on that journey. And I just couldn't do that before. So passion for me is really about using my strengths to bring other people along on the journey with me.
If anyone is finding themselves that they're not in the place that they want to be, they're not living their dream life, and they're not following their heart's desire, and they don't have the passion in their relationships that they want to have, what would be your recommendations?
And I think the first one is to have the courage to take stock and to stop and to just challenge yourself. And not be afraid to change direction. You know, a lot of the time people are afraid. I know I was afraid. Like, well, what will people say? You know, will they judge me? Will I be able to earn the same amount of money? Because, you know, financial stability is important, right?
It is really,
really
really
important.
You've
still got to pay the bills and live the life that you want to live, right? But, you know, it's that courage. It really is courage, I think. But especially when society is saying one thing and you're like, well, I want to try something slightly different. And, you know, 80% of people are saying, well, that sounds like a crazy idea.
Exactly. And also that courage is not the absence of fear, right?
No.
Courage
Absolutely
is
not.
feeling the fear and doing it ananyway.
But
it will be there. Isn't it that?
You're kind of walking through coals. You're walking, I mean, I often talk about you're almost having to walk, you know, if as you walk away from the bright light, if the bright light is your fear, the shadow that it casts is humongous. But the closer you get, the smaller the shadow gets.
True.
And so you're kind of almost walking in to that shadow. I
love that analogy.
But as you get closer and closer, you get closer to the light. So I like that as an analogy to kind of give us that courage.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
Love that. So just stepping into being courageous and stepping into the fear, basically. That's
and start to just analyze what it is that matters to you the most. Like if you think about the work, is it fulfilling you? If it's not, what is it that's not? It might be that you're just overworking and maybe you need to set better boundaries for yourself. I mean, some great work by Adam Grant which showcases when we give too much of ourselves without setting the requisite boundaries, guess what? We end up at the bottom of the pile. We end up exhausted. We end up depleted, that we can't give anymore. But actually his research also shows that the most successful people, the happiest people, are the ones that give. So that's what gives? How does that even happen?
Exactly.
And it's because they've set boundaries. So they know that they don't give to the people who just take. They give in ways that works for them. It doesn't feel like a chore. They want to do it. It's connected to their purpose. It's connected to their passion. And, you know, they're just mindful of how they do it, and they take care of themselves. They prioritize self-care. They're not, you know, someone who's just giving their all without thinking about themselves. They're making sure they've got their own oxygen mask on first, and they're giving from a place of abundance. And I think from there, that's when we grow.
I know you read a lot. What would be your 3 favorite books on the kind of gearing towards this topic of living your dream life?
But 3 books, wow. I mean, where to start? I've read so many that have fundamentally changed my thinking and understanding of the human condition. Brené Brown, I love. I think she does phenomenal work. She's helped me understand myself a lot better and how I react and armor up. And hopefully now I'm putting a lot more of that down on the floor and coming, hey, let's have some conversations here that are uncomfortable, but that actually we need to have to be able to grow as individuals. So, her latest book, Dare to Lead, was, I thought, a phenomenal read. And I love that to pieces. Martin Seligman, brilliant. He's known as a father of positive psychology. His latest book, again, The Hope Circuit. I loved his Learned Optimism. I also liked Authentic Happiness, but his latest book is more of a biographical account of his life and how it all intertwines and coming together to understand his research in light of the new research within neuroscience was phenomenal.
So could you say something more about the positive psychology? What is that?
Well, for me, it's really about how we shift our mindset. I think when we talk about, well-being or how we feel, a lot of the time we put it down to the environment around us. It's like, this is happening to me. But yet all the research showcased that our environment at best has about a 10% influence on us. The rest of it is how our brain interprets the world around us. Right. So if we can retrain this to scan for things and interpret things in a different way, we start to experience a completely different version of reality. That's why right? You're sitting there on a bus or with a friend or something, and they're something happens and they'll have a completely different reaction to you. The same things that just happened. But their brain is interpreting it in a completely different way. And the thing is, we can shift that. I mean, this is why I love doing what I do, because it's like, wow, I can start to see the patterns that have developed in people and go, right, okay, this is why you're feeling the trauma, the pain and everything else, and this is potentially where it's coming from. And if you can change this, you can transform the way that you experience your life. But third book, again, really hard to choose, but I think emotional intelligence for me has been a huge game changer in the last few years. And I'm still learning a lot about this space. But one of the psychologists, emotional intelligence scientists that I love is called Mark Brackett. He's at Yale. And he recently wrote a book called Permission to Feel. And he, again, some great tools, some great ways of thinking. It's like just thinking about your mood and where you might sit. If you're in the red, you're in a fight or flight state, an angry state. What kind of decisions are you making in that state? How are you going to talk to people? How are you going to interact with people? What impact is it going to have in your relationships? Okay, well, if you're in that state, is now a good time to be having those discussions or making those decisions? Probably not.
Exactly.
So, okay, if we're cognizant of that, what is a state where you make your best decisions, your most beautiful relationships and conversations and everything? What state is that? And then if you know what state that is, how do you get yourself back into that state? Because it's only from there that you can create the beauty that you want. If something happens, but you happen to be in a good mood, you're going to deal with it very differently than if you're in a bad mood. If you're already irritated and someone does something really small, they're likely to get your wrath. Definitely. Is that fair?
Exactly. No,
I can't remember whose quote this is, but it's really easy to be angry, but to be angry at the right person at the right time for the right reason, that's a skill.
That's true. That's so true. I love that. I love that. So I'd like to circle back a little bit to Wellbeing Republic and one of the reasons that you started it, which was also to switch the conversation from ill-being to well-being. So I know that's your kind of the core of Wellbeing Republic is
inspire, strive, thrive, right? So my bit is hopefully the inspiration bit. They've got to then strive, right? It's the action piece that we talk about. But the results of that are absolutely thriving. If we put in, together the models and things and the skills and the frameworks that exist that I work with, there's absolutely no doubt that you will thrive. So.
And that's amazing. And just also being part of that journey to help people get to that point, I guess, is so rewarding as well.
When I get feedback from people, even a year or 2 years down the line, and they said, you've transformed my life, you've saved my life, you've done these steps, it's like, okay, by the way, you've done all the work. But it's just amazing to be part of someone's journey like that. Amazing.
So I just wanted, now that we are in Corona times and in the midst of this COVID pandemic, What would be your kind of recommendations to people how they thrive in these difficult times, and are you even allowed to?
And that last question is quite pertinent for me, because I absolutely do think that we can thrive through a pandemic. It sounds a little bit weird because it doesn't feel like we should. It feels, as I said, there could be a little bit of guilt associated with that. But if we put in the right practices, for me, thriving is really around adopting the right rituals. So the daily practices we put in place that help us to maintain our positive state, and then our mindset. And I think once you put those two together and apply them in the right way, there's no real reason why you wouldn't be able to thrive through a pandemic, because as long as you're not being negatively affected by, the virus itself. But the things that are stopping people from thriving are, they're worried about job, they're worried about stuff that's mostly outside of their control. And dispelling all of that energy on stuff which actually may or may not happen. You'd be far better putting that energy into something that you have control over and that you can take positive steps towards potentially stemming some of the worry or the concern, or just focusing on something else will actually help you to feel good. It's so phenomenal to transform the way that we're motivated, because from going from a place of fear to a place of love, or whatever you want to call it.
Exactly.
But my motivation now is the reason that I get up in the morning, and I love it. But I'm waking up energized for what lies ahead, and not already being daunted by the prospect of the day ahead.
Yeah.
So that for me is a transformation that helps people, I think, live their dream life. I think when you're waking up energized for the day ahead, that is a really good sign.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. I think that's a beautiful note to end on, and I want to thank you so much for coming on our show, and I really enjoyed it, and massive thank you for being here.
Likewise, it's been a great conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
High fives!
If you want to learn more about Nick's work, visit his website wellbeingrepublic.com, where you can also find his blog and his podcast Fear and Hope.